Are you busy or is your time free? If it's okay, then we'll tell you a story. Are you familiar with Anglo-American literature? But let's be more specific. The neoclassical era, perhaps? Are you ready?
Writers of neoclassical period tried to imitate the style of the Romans and Greeks. Are you sometimes wondering why it's called neoclassical? It's because of the combination of the terms neo, which means new, and classical as in the day of the Roman and Greek classics. This was also the era of the Enlightenment, which emphasized logic and reason. It was preceded by the Renaissance and followed by the Romantic era. In fact, the neoclassical period ended in 1798 when Wordsworth published the Romantic lyrical ballads.
The period is marked by the rise of Deism, intellectual backlash against early Puritanism, and America's revolution against England. Neoclassical literature is characterized by order, accuracy, and structure. Some popular types of literature included parody, essays, satire, letters, fables, melodrama, and rhyming with couplets. Neoclassical period was written between 1660 and 1798. This period is broken down into three parts: the Restoration period, the Augustan period, and the Age of Johnson.
This period marks the British king's restoration to the throne after a long period of Puritan domination in England. Its symptoms include the dominance of French and classical influences in poetry and drama. Restoration literature continued to appeal to heroic ideals of love and honor, particularly on stage in heroic tragedy. Here are some of the famous writers in the Restoration. John Dryden. Dryden was the most influential writer in the Restoration, for he wrote in every form important to the period: occasional verse, comedy, tragedy, heroic plays, odes, satires, translation of classical works, and produced influential critical essays concerning how one ought to write these forms. John Milton. Restoration prose style grew more like witty, urbane conversation and less like intricate, rhetorical style of previous writers like John Milton and John Donne. Sir William Temple John Locke, Samuel Pepys and Aphra Behn. John Racine. John Baptiste Pauquelin, also known by his stage name Molière.
It is called Augustan because King George I wanted people to think he was like Augustus Caesar. This period is marked by the imitation of Virgil and Horace's literature in English letters. Some of the famous writers, Alexander Pope was the most significant figure in poetry during the Augustan period. His witty couplets were often quoted and used as axioms. Jonathan Swift targets the empiricists who insist on individual unyielding reason over morality and social values. François-Marie Arouet de Voltaire Joseph Addison. Famous compositions: Gulliver's Travel by Jonathan Swift and Rape of Lock by Alexander Pope.
This period marks transition toward the upcoming Romanticism. The period is still largely neoclassical. Much was happening around the world politically, such as both the American and French revolutions. This time marked the transition in English literature from the structure and formality of neoclassical writers to the emotional, uncovered writing of the Romantics.
Here are some of the famous writers of the Augustan age. Samuel Johnson. He was the literary dictator of this age, though he was not the greatest writer. Johnson's own style is often condemned as ponderous and verbose. He could write in an easy and direct style when he chose. Edward Gibbon was the first historian of England who wrote in a literary manner. His greatest historical work, The Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire, which is an authoritative and well-documented history, can pass successfully the test of modern research and scholarship. but its importance in literature is on account of its prose style, which is the very climax of classicism.
George Crabbe stood midway between the Augustines and the Romantics. In form he was classical, but in the temper of his mind he was romantic. To him, nature is a presence, a motion, and a spirit, and he realizes the intimate union of nature with man. Robert Burns, who was the greatest songwriter in the English language, had a great love for nature and a firm belief in human dignity and quality, both of which are characteristic of Romanticism.
William Cowper, who lived a tortured life and was driven to the verge of madness, had a genial and kind soul. His poetry, much of which is of autobiographical interest, describes the homely scenes and pleasures and pains of simple humanity, the two important characteristics of Romanticism. Thomas Gray is as famous as the author of Elegy written in a country churchyard, the best known in the English language. Unlike classical poetry, which was characterized by restraint on personal feelings and emotions, this poem is the manifestation of deep feelings of the poet. It is suffused with the melancholy spirit, which is a characteristic romantic trait.
Thomas Paine, as the author of two highly influential pamphlets at the start of the American Revolution. He inspired the Patriots in 1776 to declare independence from Britain. His ideas reflected Enlightenment-era rhetoric of transnational human rights.
Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin.
Lives of Poets by Samuel Johnson. The Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire by Edward Gibbon, elegy written in a country churchyard by Thomas Gray.
To sum up, the neoclassical era in literature brought a sense of decorum and stability to writers. There were rules to be carefully followed and there was structure to be upheld. People praised wit and parody as well. It was a time of careful moral appearances, though appearances were more valued than honesty.
That's all, folks. We hope you'll be able to retain some information and don't forget to keep it neo.
Neo.